Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for your patience on getting us all together. Let me tell you, yesterday when we rehearsed this, it went perfectly. Isn't it always the case? It's so good to be together. I'm Linda Hart. I'm the minister at TUUC, and I consult with Vashon UU Universalist Fellowship over on Vashon. And it is so good for us all to be together. I'm grateful to Tandy for lifting up that this is a brand new thing. This hasn't been done before, and we're just so grateful to be all coming together during this time. It's one of the gifts that we have, is being able to explore and discover new ways of being together. I'm going to invite Arian to light our chalice, and I'd like to lead you through our chalice lighting, and then we'll hear welcomes from all the other congregations as well. As Arian lights the chalice, please say with me the words that should be up on your screen. We light this chalice in deep respect for the mystery and holiness of life, in honor and gratitude for those who have gone before, with love and compassion for those who dwell among us, and with hope and faith for the generations to come. So is our chalice lit here, and may it be lit in your homes as well. I invite Jessica Starrockers to say a word of welcome now.
Good morning. This is Reverend Jessica Starrockers with Cedars UU Fellowship. I can see in the chats and in the attendees list, so many of my folks are here, and I'm looking down, there's 180 participants. So this is amazing to all be gathered. I want to just say deep gratitude to Kitsap and to Cedars for your flexibility this morning. We thought we were going to be on YouTube, and we're here. And this is what we're leaning into these days, is flexibility and also creativity and being in community together. That this connection is the most important piece. So we're here together. I'm so grateful. I'm in my home, and at the same time, I'm with all of you, and welcome.
Hello, everyone. I am Reverend Zachary Vincent of Cedars Unitarian Universalist Church, serving North Kitsap County. And I want to say thank you all for your patience this morning. I know that using new technology can be a little bit frustrating. And I just am grateful that we're figuring this out together. I know that in the process of switching everything over, I noticed that my blood pressure started to rise a little bit. So just as sort of a welcome, let's just all take a breath together. Breathing in and out, and settle into this moment, into this time of worship together. Thank you for being here with us, and I'm looking forward to experimenting with this new way of meeting with all of you. So welcome, everybody. I'm glad to be in this space with all of you. And you know, the thing I really love about that song, that line, ours is no caravan of despair. And I feel in this time right now that just being able to gather in whatever ways we can in this virtual caravan keeps despair from setting in my heart and being. So welcome to this time together. Today, we're going to talk about agape love, or the love that often is considered the highest form of love. It's the love that calls us into action in the world. As I was reflecting on this category of love, I found myself drawn to a passage of the gospel found in the book of John. In this passage, we're told, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friend. Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friend. Another passage of scripture that takes up the topic of agape love says that by this we know love, because he laid down his life for us. And we also ought to lay down our lives for our brethren. As you can see, agape love is difficult love. It's love that requires us to say less and do more. Agape love is the type of love that we share when we allow our actions, our way of moving through the world, to speak louder than any eloquent proclamation we can make. So let us breathe in again together. And in breathing, call to mind all of the people we love. And as you are thinking of these people, ask yourself where the agape love dwells in these relationships. What are you willing to give up so that this love can grow? What sacrifices have been made by others so we can be here in this moment? Take another breath and allow these questions to sink into your being as we gather this morning to give life its shape and meaning. Come, let us worship together.
So I have this morning what I'm calling my song for all ages. So there is something we are trying not to give away right now, which is a cold virus. And this is why we're all in our homes today, worshiping together from different places. But even though we are physically apart, there is something that we can share. We can share love. And we have seen lots of people sharing love right now by doing kind things for one another, like bringing groceries to our elders or making sure that we call our friends on the phone and check in on them. I think courageously switching this morning from YouTube to Zoom is an act of love, and just sharing love with one another today in this worship service. So I'm going to sing a song that I have sung before in my congregation. It's by Malvina Reynolds, and she was a Unitarian Universalist songwriter, and she used to say that her songs were mini sermons. And this one's called Magic Penny. And I think that when I start singing, the words are going to come up on the screen. So please sing along with me. Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. It's just like a magic penny, hold it tight and you won't have any. Lend it, spend it, and you'll have so many. Roll all over the floor, for love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. Money's candy and we like to use it, but love is better if you don't refuse it. It's a treasure and you'll never lose it, unless you lock up your door. For love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. Let's go dancing till the break of day. If there's a pipe we can play. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. So there's some other things that we can actually give away, not just love. We could give away hope. Hope is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Hope is something if you give it away, you end up having more. There's also joy. Joy is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Joy is something if you give it away, you end up having. And of course there's still love. Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. Thank you.
My friends, as we gather here as these joined communities, one of the things that prompted this was the start of Tahoma UU's pledge drive, budget drive, that's starting just now, actually. I know that Vashon Island is also in the midst of their budget drive. I expect Cedars is probably close. I know Kitsap has finished theirs, I think at least. But it's a reminder, as we are not in each other's physical presence, your generosity continues to support our congregations. There should be a screen up, at least in a moment or two, to let you know where you can go to donate to your congregation this morning. We encourage you to go, click the box, go to PayPal, go wherever, and continue your support to these beloved communities. We are all connected to each other. We all support one another. Thank you so much for your generosity of spirit, your generosity of intention, your generosity of your resources. It's what makes our coming together possible. Thank you. No. Oh, it's you. Yes, right. Go ahead.
I'm Marian Babcock, in case you didn't know that or saw me in and out earlier. I'd like you to take a moment and close your eyes. Take one breath in and one breath out. I want you to settle in, get your feet comfortable, get comfortable in your seat wherever you are. I'm going to read you some words and then we're going to give you a chance to meditate a little bit on them. It's the knots prayer. Please untie the knots that are in my mind, my heart, and my life. Remove the have-nots, the can-nots, and the do-nots that I have in my mind. Erase the will-nots, may-nots, might-nots that may find a home in my heart. Release me from the could-nots, would-nots, and should-nots that obstruct my life. And most of all, dear goddess and gods, I ask that you remove from my mind, my heart, and my life all of the am-nots that I have allowed to hold me back, especially the thought that I am not good enough. Ishe Ole.
So the theme of our service today as Reverend Zachary said earlier, is agape love, defined as the act of abundant generosity, being selfless because you see the holy in your neighbor, believing that your neighbor's life is intimately tied up with your own, that we are all a part of the same sacred web of life, the interdependent web. Compassionately acting from this truth is agape love. So every single day, in the midst of the worry and uncertainty of this global pandemic, I find myself overwhelmed by agape love. I'm seeing it everywhere. The little free library in my neighborhood has turned into a food pantry. Younger folks are grocery shopping and making deliveries for older folks. And all over the country, our healthcare workers are putting themselves at risk to care for the most vulnerable, often without any relief in sight. And they do this out of love, generous, abundant love. And many of us are socially isolating right now, physically isolating, let's say, socially connecting. All the ministers involved in this worship service today, we wanted to get together in person, as Zachary and I have been doing the last couple weeks, because being together in person with our beloved music directors and worship associates makes for such a joyful worship experience. But instead we chose to be together in a different way, a choice that comes from agape love. Kitsap Fellowship's parish nurse Jennifer Ingalls said this week that social isolation is a radical act of love for the world. Social isolation is a radical act of love for the world. As Unitarian Universalists, we believe in always choosing generous, abundant love. And this moment is calling us all to lean into love in new ways, to lean into love by staying physically apart. This is a challenge. Physical expressions of love like hugs and handshakes and hand-holding connect us to one another. And so now we have to find new ways to express our love and care. When we are physically separated from one another, what can we do to show our community, our friends and family and neighbors that we love them? Calling on the telephone, writing a letter, sending a text, donating financially if we are able to the institutions and people who will be most affected by this pandemic, reaching out if we haven't heard from someone, and reaching out if we are the person feeling alone and in need of connection. One of the things I keep repeating these days is a phrase from theologian Howard Thurman, and he calls it the burden of pretensions. It is time to drop the burden of pretensions. We don't have to pretend anymore that we can do it alone, or that we're perfect, or that we know how to do tech perfectly. It is evident now that we can't. We can't do it alone, and we mustn't try. We need one another. And in order to show up for one another, when we can't be physically together, in order to connect when we are apart, we have to be willing to be more real and more authentic and more human with one another than we have ever been before. On Zoom meetings, we're seeing into one another's homes, sometimes for the first time, meeting one another's beloved pets. If you've seen me on Zoom lately, you may have noticed I have 2 puppies and a blue sweater that I love, all of which I try to wear on me whenever I'm home. So let's embrace this moment courageously. Choose physical distance as a radical act of love and embrace our authentic humanness. Be real together, be honest about how we're doing, and reach out so that this challenge becomes an opportunity to draw even closer together.
There are lessons that we have to learn over and over and over again. Many of them are not that hard, but they don't take the first or the second or the 8th or the 47th time. Some of those lessons we never completely get right, or we forget too easily and shake our heads when we learn them over and over again. Those of you who were with me for worship last week will remember that I said something about how learning to not touch my face was a challenge, and I suggested that you not start counting, and within 7 seconds had my hand near my face, not on it, before I remembered. I don't know if any of you are having that same issue. I'm reminded of the story of the town where the Sabbath was said to be the sweetest ever. And a seeker went to find out why the Sabbath was so sweet there. It was all because of a particular rabbi. He tried to find out what made the Sabbath so sweet there. And he asked lots of people, but no one could really say what it had been about that particular rabbi that made the Sabbath so sweet. When he finally found a woman who had been alive in the days of the rabbi, he went to her and talked with her about why the Sabbath was so sweet then. She worked in the kitchen, and she was transported immediately back to that time he could see because her eyes glazed over. And she kept saying, yes, it was so sweet. The rabbi would come in, we would be flying around the kitchen and running into each other, trying to get everything done before the hour, the minute that the Sabbath began. And he couldn't get from her what it was. And finally, he just yelled at her, remind you, what was the rabbi reminding you of? And she paused and said he would remind us to forgive each other. And then the Sabbath would begin. So very sweet. We are in a time of rushing around, I think, even if we're seemingly at rest and at separation. Rushing around in our heads, perhaps. Rushing around in our hearts with worry, with concern, with difficulty. What we need to remember in this time is to love each other in all the ways that we can love. By the distance that we keep, the acts of kindness, all the things that we do to try to care for one another as best we can. Someone remarked on Facebook over the last few days that after 9/11, there was a kindness in a community that was remarkable. Many of us will remember that. She also said, in the years that have passed since, hard to believe it's almost 20 for some of us, it has faded away. She celebrated that we are seeing again that same kind of kindness and love emerging, neighbors checking in on each other, the commitment of our religious professionals and our medical professionals who are at risk themselves to save the rest of us. We have an awareness of how deeply interconnected we are, perhaps more profound than we typically have. And then she lamented that we will forget again as quickly as a breath and fall back into our own personal dramas, our grudges, and our smaller lives. Right now, the veil has been pulled back for us, pulled back in this time of global crisis, and we see that agape love, as Jessica noted, emerging again. Not everywhere and not everyone, that's for sure. But in this moment, we are all invited to drink in this lesson deeply and to hold tight to it. We belong to each other, everyone and everywhere. Inasmuch as we give to each other, we receive. Each week at Tahoma UU Congregation, we sing to each other as a blessing. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. We'll sing that in just a short while together. May it remind us all as we move through this time of crisis. May we remember it truly and deeply, forever, world without end.
There we go. So, there's a song by the artist Sufjan Stevens titled "The Greatest Gift," and I posted the name and the song of the title of the song into the chat bar if you're curious later to look it up. And the song opens, "Praise the mountain and the rain, all the gifts that still remain. But the greatest gift of all, and the law above all laws, is to love your friends and lovers, to lay down your life for your brothers. As you abide in peace, so will your delight increase." To some, the law above all laws that Sufjan is referencing may sound a bit familiar. The law Sufjan is invoking is the same love that John is referencing in the gospel. It's the love that tells us that there is nothing greater than to lay down one's own life for their friends. Sufjan is making a blatant allusion to this text. But why? Why is this love held up as the greatest love? Why is it seen as the law above all laws? The thing about agape love is that by its nature, this category of love is reciprocal. Agape love is not only the universal and unconditional love of all creation radiating out, it's also our own love for that creation being reflected back at us. Agape love is by necessity reflexive, and as such can only exist in togetherness, not in isolation, even if that togetherness is in virtual spaces like these. Agape love is different than the brotherly love of wisdom known as philosophy, the sort of love that calls us into endless intellectual debate with one another, seeking to satisfy the curiosity of our mind. Agape love is not eros, the sensual love that seeks after bodily pleasure, though that can be nice at times. Agape love is the love that calls us to give of ourselves. The love that asks us to be willing to sacrifice, even to the point of laying down our own life for another. Agape love is the promise that in living in such a way, true peace and delight will be found. Agape love is the love that says we are all one here. And because we are one, we care about each other. Our fate and destiny is linked. In many ways, you might say that the fact that we are meeting in this way is an act of agape love. Each of us has given up the joy of physical closeness for the health and safety of our community as a whole. We have given up the luxuries of going to the movies or out to shows. Frivolous outings and social meetups have been put on hold. Some of us may even be limiting our trips to the grocery store or foregoing such trips altogether. And we are doing all of this, sacrificing the rhythms of our ordinary life because we care about each other. This agape love, this way of being together. The final thing I want to say about agape love is that despite being a love that calls us to make sacrifices, the nature of these sacrifices does not diminish us. In fact, When we give of ourselves in the way that agape love calls us to, we are made stronger. This love makes us stronger. Agape love is the love that, when given, magnifies the individual to be more than they could be alone. It's the love, like a song, that when sung issues forth and echoes until all creation resounds with the music. Music of praise for the mountain and rain. Music of love for ourselves and each other. In closing, I offer this final verse from Sufjan's song. Run to your friends and lovers. Lay down your life for your brothers. As you abide in peace, so will your delight increase. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.
So that's my cue to offer this song one more time, our Magic Penny reprise. And the lyrics are going to come up again on your screen. If you would join in with me, you must know it by now. Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. It's just like a magic penny, hold it tight and you won't have any. Lend it, spend it, and you'll have so many to roll all over the floor. For love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. Money's candy and we like to use it, but love is better if you don't refuse it. It's a treasure and you'll never lose it, unless you lock up your door. For love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. So let's go dancing till the break of day. If there's a piper, we can pay. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more.
Here at TUUC, we come towards the end of our service and offer a time again for a deep breath. Do you think we can do this too many times? I certainly don't. Breathing in and breathing out. We pause to set an intention. If there's been something today in the sense of community, in the words that you've heard, in the music, if there's something that has touched you and moved you, I invite you to set an intention for how you will carry it out into the world. If you are moved to do so, you can share that in the chat. But I invite you just to pause and breathe for a moment. So may it be. Amen.
And so the Spirit of love has called us to be together this day And the Spirit of love calls us again into the world. We appreciate all of you taking the time to join with us, to reflect on what it means to love in a way that deepens our commitment to one another, and to continue to engage despite the physical distance that keeps us apart. Our faith tells us that there is a spirit, there's a force that binds us one to another in an interconnected web of life. And now we are exploring new ways of manifesting that interconnection. And so it's with that spirit that I give my blessing to all of you and invite you to join in our chalice extinguishing today. And the words that we'll use should appear up on the screen here in just a moment. Okay, so I see no words here. So that's okay. We are going to use these words, and if I get them slightly wrong, please forgive me. But I believe many of you at Cedars, and I've heard it at Tahoma as well, know these words. And so we extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our service is ended, and our service to one another and the world begins anew. Blessings, you all.
So let's sing this closing blessing song. If you don't know it, you can hum along or just sing whatever tune you choose, because who's going to know? I invite you to join in hand movements if you wish to do that. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. Blessings upon you, friends.